Good morning, this is Andrew Raymond Savage. Today's, let me see here, 0937, that's 0937 Pacific Coast Time, GMT. The date is 21 May 2016, Common Era, Saturday, the 7th day of the week. No, don't correct me. It's not your calendar to correct me. Anyway. Okay, so, speaking of calendars, right? Saturday, date, truth, rest, day of your apartment of truth, on rest, Sabbath day, Sabbato, day of rest, day of the Sabbath. Alright, so, I wanted to talk about just simple things like education systems, how a lot of the education systems in the West have failed their students time and time again. From everything from cooked books on history, of not understanding the everything from history of American history, from the 1400s to the late 1800s, of the 65 nations of the Confederacy. You had 65 nations here. A lot of them actually kept their names and their flags. But it looks like you guys are missing 17. Anyway, so there's that. But don't need to get into that just yet. I'd like to get into something more easier to understand, something easier and more immediate to test. Okay, multiplication tables. Back on to multiplication tables. As per authentic multiplication tables, not what your half-wit false teacher from a grade school taught you, but actual multiplication tables as per the classic university. For instance, -2 times -2 equaling -4, +2 times +2 equaling +4. Okay, let's say we're playing with electrons, neutrons, and protons, right? I have two electrons. Electrons are negative charged particles. Okay, so I've got two electrons, that's -2, and I decide to multiply them by a factor of another -2. Now I have 4 electrons. 4 -4. Yeah, 4 negative. That's -4, right? Okay, so let's say I try to multiply protons. 2 protons times 2 protons equals 4 protons. +2 times +2 equaling +4. Alright, simple enough. This is stuff I learned in preschool, mind you. Okay, so -2, let's say I have 2 electrons, and I multiply them by 2 protons. Now I have 2 neutrons. -2 times +2 equals neutral 2 with 4 subparts. That's 2 electrons times 2 protons equals 2 neutrons with 4 subparts. It's easy to test too. It's already been proven time and time again. I just don't know why it's taking the U.S. American education system that long to catch up. Meanwhile, your calculators are all broken in the West, and you're thinking you're on top of the world or something. Here's another thing. Okay, so let's go with, let's say I have 1 loaf of bread. Okay, I have 1 loaf of bread, and it's in the cupboard. Then my neighbor tells me that they're going to have their family over, and they want to be making sandwiches. And they ask me for a loaf of bread so they can make sandwiches. Okay. So I decide to take the entire loaf of bread there and hand it off to them. So that's 1 loaf of bread divided by 0. The nullifier being handing the loaf of bread over, having the loaf of bread leave the house, my house, and go over to my neighbor's house. So 1 divided by 0 equals 0 and 1. See, the neighbor had 0 loaves of bread. I had 1 loaf of bread. But then we decided to divide the loaf of bread by 0. So now I have 0 loaves of bread, and he has 1 loaf of bread. 1 divided by 0 equals 0 and 1. 2 divided by 0 equals 0 and 2. Very easy. Applied mathematics. It's easier to understand mathematics and multiplication and algebra when you actually are practicing and learning applied mathematics and applied algebra. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time and failing your students, failing your country, failing your nation, failing your state, failing just about everybody. You can even apply the multiplication tables with hertz. Negative 2 hertz times positive 2 hertz. Like a canceling wave. I don't know, it would take a little more, understanding, once you get into hertz and, sonar and all that stuff. But it seems like, it doesn't just seem like it is quite apparent, self-evident that you have a lot of false teachers, playhouse teachers, playhouse cops, playhouse doctors that don't know a thing about their job, that have been doing nothing but collecting checks to do nothing but continue to cause the ruin and collapse of society. Well, you guys think, for some reason, because your executive branch, your judicial branch, and your legislative branches of the United States of America have been gaffing their logs for over 200 years, while you might think that things are getting better, they're actually getting far worse. For instance, when you think about a quarter, what do you usually think about there when you think about a quarter? This is, I guess, a U.S. American quarter, right? This is a U.S. American quarter. It has the Brit George Washington's face on it. And, Great Sand Dunes. Oh, that's interesting. Of Colorado. Okay, on the back. From 2014. Okay, so this is a U.S. American quarter. Now, a Confederate quarter from the Confederacy era of America, from the 1400s to late 1800s, when you see there were 65 nations of the Confederacy. It wasn't red pill versus blue pill syndrome's idea of what the Confederacy was all about. The thing was that there were these people that were you had the Unionist Party of the place that they used to call the 13 colonies, right? But that was actually 17 nations before the Brits came over and decided to mess around with the Confederate model. You had 65 nations in the area now known as the Lower 48. 65 nations from the 1400s to the 1800s. And it was the equivalent of the EU. 65 nations with federation, with federal models. Confederacy, with federation. Con meaning avec or with. Now, don't correct me. It's not your language to correct me. And if you're not understanding Latin this far into life, you really need to just check yourself in or check yourself out. So a quarter, by today's standards of the United States of America, it's 25 cents. Okay, but back then, a quarter was literally a quarter ounce of silver. The percentage varied, from pure silver to like 0.90, depending on the fluctuation of the market. It was the equivalent of today's European Union. So essentially, a quarter, when you look at it, a quarter went from being worth, by today's standards, $6, quarter ounce of silver, perhaps less, but back then more. So maybe let's say about $10. A quarter actually went from being the equivalent of $10 to now just being worth 25 cents. That's a pretty huge depreciation of currency. How can you possibly sit in that chair in the Oval Office and continue to lie through your teeth and continue to deceive the next generations that things are getting worse while telling them that things are getting better? when you have this much unfinished work on your hands, that much blood on your hands, and now you're playing with what you're calling money, your idea of currency, that smells like blood, tastes like blood, rusts like blood, money. Don't even get me started with what money actually means as per classic Latin. Money and currency are two completely different words in Latin. Money is a demonology word. It's like a psychological disorder. Whereas currency is being current with the times, applying current ideas, current mediums to getting things done. Money is usually what an insane person asks for to continue to inflict more moaning. It's the moaning that, like a bestial person, inflicts upon their victims while asking to do more with what they've done already. It's a demonology word. I don't know why you guys are late to class and why you guys are sitting so high up with so far to fall down, where you guys are playing with droplets of blood smelted into rounds called pennies, quarters, nickels, and dimes. Oh, how far you've fallen. So, with that said, it's very interesting to see how many retards there are. Literal retards, mind you. Not insulting you. No, just being observant. How many retards there are sitting on Capitol Hill telling everyone that they're doing work when they're not doing work. They're bankrupting society. They're sowing the seeds of society's ruin and collapse and decay right before the whole world's eyes. While you guys ask for more, to do less, and to inflict more pain and suffering. Meanwhile, okay, so that's on the secular hand. On the credendum shelf, you guys don't even, the Christian, the people calling themselves the Christians, the members of the covenant, don't seem to understand that it's forbidden in authentic, classic Christianity to join a covenant. It's a coven with Christ, not a covenant. Don't correct me. You're a little too far gone to be playing that charading game. It's not your faith. It's mine. You guys are playing with old knights' tales, calling them the book, the holy book, the great book, the grand book, the bishop's book, the Bible. But you don't seem to understand that those used to be old knights' tales, like shortened, like just take along credendums. That Christianity's credendums, its compendium of books and articles of faith, used to fill entire libraries. So did all those other faiths. And then, well, you guys decided to go ransack some knights. And then you had 50 Knights' Tales show up over at the Council of Nicaea under Constantine. And then you just hacked away at it. Don't correct me. You're too far gone, too far lost to be correcting the person that's sticking their hand out, trying to actually tell you what's up. While you guys are playing around with chopped liver, calling yourselves Christians, you don't even seem to understand that Yahweh is not the Christian deity. It's a demonology word for a leech demon. I shit you not. Don't correct me there. The Jews are not even speaking a real language. They're missing 2 characters, and it's not even called Hebrew. They're writing it backwards, and they don't even know the actual order of the alphabet. Don't correct me. You're too far gone. So this is what you guys have reduced yourselves to. Playing with reduced metal smelted down into rounds that you call quarters, nickels, and dimes, as if that's valuable. Completely oblivious to the times. while your presidents of the United States of America just sit back in their Oval Office, and then your bullshit charaders there supporting them, just keep vouching for them. Vouch away, you retards. At base value, just this is what you guys are doing. Playing with a joystick, not caring about all the pain and suffering that you guys are constantly inflicting, then asking for more to do more infliction of pain and suffering while you're bankrupting society, and then playing around with your pens thinking, oh, because you wrote something down, you wrote a piece of fiction down, that makes it the truth, while you just take all the dead people that you've murdered, all the civilians that you've murdered over the last 200 something years, and it's like you're just sweeping all their bodies under the rug, camping out right on top of the rug, saying, hey, there's nothing to see here, guys. Some 400,000 years of human evolution. Don't correct me. You've already looked at the teeth from Tel Aviv there. DNA test in the teeth. They came back as positive for being what you guys call Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens sapiens, which isn't even the proper term for this version of humanity. 400,000 years of this form being on this planet, and this is how far you guys have come. When are you guys going to grow up? When are you going to let the adults around here have work? While you have criminals running around scot-free like George Walker Bush Jr., inbred, fecal matter, incestuous pigs like George Herbert Walker Bush the retard, out scot-free. And his idea of whatever scot-free is, he's only got these 4 walls, these 4 dimensions to play with. Does he even know what's waiting for him on the other side? You guys really should be afraid for your souls, for your spirits. After what you've done, you don't even know what rot you have sown beneath your feet is waiting for you when you're buried 6 feet deep. You think that when this flesh, these 4 dimensions of your idea of what you're seeing as reality, once it fades away, you think that's all there is?